Yes, good evening once again. It's a very beautiful Friday, and we are back with Hugh Conversations. And tonight, I'm very happy and privileged to be hosting and speaking to Natalie. Natalie is coming from CPTD. I always make mistakes. I always go for CPTD, and she'll be discussing with us a number of issues concerning. Inequality, and obviously should be sharing what our organization has been doing. And Natalie, so you pick it up from here. You have 20 minutes of presentation, and during these 20 minutes, no questions. You just speak to the people. So Natalie will be joining us. I don't know why I'm always the one with the stronger network, and yeah. So Natalie will be coming to speak with us, and there she
Oops.
is.
Okay, so I think
So
yeah,
you
the
can
line dropped.
okay, yeah. So I think you can continue. You can start and then continue with your presentation.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is fantastic. You had a great day, and yeah, I hope life is going on well in the new normal. Um, as has been introduced, my name is Natalie, coming from CTPD, and I will be speaking on a topic that I think we've all become familiar with, particularly on this platform, which is inequality. So just looking at how this is impacting on our lives and possible solutions that we probably could be exploring. Yeah, so given that brief background, I think I will get direct into a brief context before I begin to speak about what inequality means for me particularly. Yeah, so I think over time we have all grown to appreciate that the Zambian economy has been experiencing decreasing economic growth. This has been made clear through the GDP rates that have over time been decreasing or slowing down. Also, I mean, borrowing has left the country on a knife edge where we have accumulated so much debt and there's no sign of halting on the part of accumulation. We are also seeing increasingly an increase in the rural population, mostly because we have men migrating to mining towns. So essentially, when I'm talking about the rural population, I'm talking about women. So this is, in a nutshell, some of the issues that I'll itemize, and I will try and speak to them at a more lengthy level as I give my brief presentation. So in terms of inequality and what this means for me, it's threefold. So I like to look at this just as is when we're looking at the SDGs, for example. So for me, I look at it at the regional level, the national level, as well as the local level, because I feel like it impacts at all the different areas of life. So, of course, kind of breaking this down and giving more context, if we look at regional inequality, obviously this has to do with nations and the kind of agreements and negotiations that we are getting into. So, in this way, the kind of inequality that I'm talking about that impacts on countries, issues to do with trade, and we see things like, oh, what can I say, agreements that have been placed together by the WTO, and seeing how these favor more of the developed nations. So this then begins to create some sort of inequality at that level, which then borders down to nations. Also, I mean, speaking about trade and the WTO, we have issues around preferential treatment, which ideally should be favoring developing nations. But what we have seen over time, of course, with growing contexts like the most favored nations, we have a situation where developed nations have benefited more from trade agreements and other such like platforms. So this then creates some sort of divide at the regional level. Um, Not to suffice to say as well, issues of sustainability. So notably, most developing countries usually get a raw deal out of regional platforms or agreements. So I usually like to look at inequality from this end and then border down to the national level kind of inequality, which in this case looks at the policy options that we have. So especially on the fiscal side, I think that has been a problem over time for Zambia. Um, of course, it impacts from in different sectors, but largely we have been talking about the extractive sector, where we are saying we've not really gotten a fair share of taxes from the mining sector. This can be made clear from non-payment of certain fees, especially at local level, things like business levies, property rates. So you notice that certain mining companies not even make payments for this. And so the local councils are left with deficits within their budgets. Issues of transparency and accountability within the sector, of course, this has tended to impact the revenue collection on this side. So this creates some sort of inequality as well. I bring in the policy aspect because we are looking at the principal legislation and how this is ensuring that we are getting enough revenue. So this part has tended to kind of not ensure that we should get a fair share as a nation. Talking about taxes, we are also looking at sector spending. Of course, this does down to the issue of debt I had earlier given or made reference to. So, of course, the country is indebted, and so this tends to create deficits in our balance of payments. But because of this, what we note is we have then poorly funded health and education sectors. And this is especially felt in the rural areas. And so because of this, most education outcomes, especially as they relate to children, have been impacted. And of course, when we are looking at children and how they have access to certain social amenities, this then also does largely on the aspect of equality. Yeah, so this is something that we see eminently as well at a national level. Speaking about inequality and the education sector, I would just want to give a present day example where we look at the digital divide, for example. So at present, because of the problems that have been created by the COVID-19 pandemic, most schools are conducting their tuition or their course material online. But then what we notice, not everyone is able to have access to virtual platforms. So this in itself is creating some sort of inequality within the education sector. The agricultural sector as well. This is a part where we have largely had conversations around. Here we are basically looking at issues of financing for agricultural sector farmers, but also promotion of SMEs within this sector. Largely, the conversation has been around how we are prioritizing. Of course, this has been a large part of the diversification agenda, and it even appears in policy documents like the Seventh National Development Plan. But the extent to which this has been actioned is very, very limited. So, of course, we begin to see then inequality here, especially that mostly the people that are engaged in agriculture are women. And of course, with a growing rural population, you would expect that would have more investments towards this sector. But over time, we see that that hasn't happened. So at national level, that's what I'm looking at in terms of inequality. At local level, of course, as has been the discourse over time, we're looking at community participation. Okay, I thought I cut. Community participation in decision making, and this cuts across all the different sectors. This has mostly been very, very limited, and the kind of participation has not really been meaningful. So this creates some sort of inequality. Another bit, I think, which has been a larger conversation and which also borders largely on inequality, especially that Zambia is a mining town or a mining country, rather, is the issues of community benefits from mineral rents. So we note that most of the local communities that house, especially the largest mines, some Copper Belt, Northwestern Province, you have Soweto. Some of these towns record the highest levels of poverty, yet you would expect that they would have some of the growing economy, especially the revenues that contribute to GDP are coming from here. So this is one of the inequality issues that we see at the local level. And of course, like I had indicated, the local SMEs, especially within the agriculture sector. So there has been issues around accessing finance, access to markets, and this has tended the extent to which they can grow their individual capacities. So these are some of the kinds of inequalities that I see happening, or that we see happening at the three levels. that I had itemized. So in terms of solutions, I mean, of course, I do not have all the answers, but the solutions then would be kind of a reverse of all the problems I've talked about. So I'll just kind of give examples of some of the work, or yeah, some of the directions that we've taken in trying to kind of address some of these gaps, not sorting out the problems. I mean, that's at a larger scale. So of course, regional level, we have participated in certain platforms and done certain studies would also influence the discourse at this point. But of course, it begins at national level influencing, and it's at this point that I will dwell so much, as well as the local level. So of course, with policy at national level, I think I talked about the inconsistencies here and how mostly the policy has not tended to ensure that we have more revenue generation, or that we even have a lot of, or we stimulate economic growth, for example, in the trade sector. Issues such as, what example can I give? If you look at okay, I'll get back to this one. I'll get back. But I was going to say something around how the industrial policy that we have in place is not one that helps facilitate trade. And so this, of course, is something that tends to reduce on the economic potential of the local SMEs that would want to engage. Yeah, so at policy influencing, I think we have done studies and generated certain recommendations with that we've hoped that could be taken up as a way of creating more revenue for the country. So one such example I would give is one which we did on debt and as it relates to public expenditure. So I spoke around how there's issues of social sector spending which hasn't been very good in the recent past or over time, as well as just the government's capacity to undertake different projects. Obviously, debt is a problem that we are currently living with, nothing that we can hide from. I think in the last year, we noted that 50% of the national budget was towards debt servicing. So, of course, then this becomes something that becomes key, even for the conversations that we are having. I talked about issues of trade agreements that the country is getting into. So these are something that is impacting at national level as well as the regional level. So from here, I think we have participated actively in providing a guide for some of the commodities or items that should be, or with this, I'm making reference to the continental trade area, which people may be aware of. So it's kind of trying to see how Zambia can get a good deal out of this, but also looking at the country's preparedness. So I think we have been very keen on working with technocrats to ensure that we are prepared, but also providing a proper guide of some of the items that we see moving trade barriers to. Yeah, so that's a different conversation altogether. Mining sector, I think the increased conversation has been around ensuring increased revenue collection, but also with the collection, we have also been talking about expenditure. And so we have been mainly talking about how mineral rent should also benefit the local communities. So I think I indicated this when I was looking at some of the gaps that exist within the communities. Of course, when we're looking at revenue, we're also looking at the fiscal side of it. So it's also ensuring that the kind of taxation systems that we have, or the regimes, not only as they relate to the mining sector, but even the ones that relate to personal incomes. For example, as you earn. So it's also ensuring that the taxation systems are not burdensome to the local citizens, so that we are also able to meaningfully participate in the economic discourse. So those are some of the issues that I could itemize that we have been doing, particularly around inequality. Of course, besides these, I can talk about how we've worked with the arts as well. Before I get into um, public finance manager, for example, I mean, we have continuously given recommendations to policymakers around debt restructuring. Like I indicated, this is a major conversation that we are currently faced with now. So these are recommendations that we continue to give, and I think some of which may have been taken up. I would have to see through that. Yes, but also I think in the recent past we've worked with arts as well, musicians, yourself, to see how best we can promote the equality agenda. And so these are some of the strategies that we have kind of put in place. Yeah, at this point, I would be happy to pause and see if there's any response.
Thank you very much, Natalie. So before I get questions from our viewers, I would like to understand. So when the trade imbalance that you've mentioned a number of times, is it structural? Does it happen because it happens, or there's something that we fail to do that allows it to happen? I'm going to ask again. What
so bad,
are you? Can you get me?
I can't.
Let me know when you can.
I can get you, but the line is just a bit shaky. It's breaking.
Okay.
I can get you. I'm just having trouble constructing the sentence. It's breaking.
Okay, so let me ask, and then you tell me if you get it. So the question I wanted to ask is, okay, she's gone. And then she's back. Hello, Natalie. Hello. Can you hear me now?
I can get you. You are just breaking in between words, so I'm not able to get the full sentence.
Okay, let me try to ask, and then we'll pick it up where you want to be able to connect. So I wanted to ask, what do you think when you talked about trade imbalances? What do you think causes or puts us in a situation where we don't get the best from negotiations from this trade? Is it the structural reasons? Is there anything that exists that stops us from getting the best from deals, or what do you think is our limiting factor? Okay, I think Natalie has got issues with the connection. I keep seeing messages from Mulungushi University students, and I got these from heavily known students. I got these from CBU students. What I can do is, I've gotten a lot of people messages like that. Please help us. Mulungushi University isn't being fair. Bash Mulungushi Chan. Mulungushi University has done this. Mulungushi. So like I have so many Mulungushi University students that are asking that we speak on their behalf. I don't know what is happening at Mulungushi, but I've gotten a lot of messages from all these students. I keep seeing messages from. Hey Natalie, can you hear me now? We speak on their behalf.
Okay, so what I have attempted to do is I have gotten another device, and I hope I'll be able to. Yeah, I'll be able to hear you from the other device.
A lot of messages. Are you watching anything there? I keep seeing messages from. Hey Natalie, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so what I have attempted to do is I have gotten another device. I can hear you.
Okay, so my question was, why do you think as Zambia or as Africa we fail to get the best out of these negotiations? Is it because of our limitations, or is it because of structures that have been built in around the trading system, the world trade system? I can, Natalie, I can hear a very bad feedback from
Okay,
there. Are you
so
watching?
yes, I can hear you. So what I've attempted to do is I am listening to you from a different device.
Can
Yeah.
you reduce the volume because I
So
can hear
in terms
you?
of why we have not really gotten a fair deal out of the regional agreements or trade agreements that we've gotten into, largely borders around issues of negotiations and capacity around this. So it's looking at the skills that we have around negotiating, but also
Mm.
are we having the right people negotiate these agreements, for example. So it's looking around this, but a larger component of it also looks at the component of diplomacy and who exactly is negotiating these agreements. So it's more around the skill set, I would indicate. Yeah. Otherwise, in terms of the technical capacity, we do have this as a country to be able to do proper trade agreements and other such like things.
Okay, so when you talk of inequality, at local level, from your perspective, from your experience as an organization, do you think we are getting better or we're getting worse? Do you think inequality at local level? Do you think we're getting better or we're getting worse? From your perspective, from your experience as an organization, do you think we are getting better or we're getting worse?
Okay, so in terms of inequalities at the local level, I mean, of course, we continue to see the divide between the rich and the poor getting wider. And with the income inequality, this even gets worse. I mean, Zambia is one of the countries which has one of the largest inequality indexes. So, as an organization, I think we have tried to kind of ensure that there's a conversation that is taking place
Mm.
amongst the local authorities, the communities, as well as the industries that are operating within these systems. We've also carried forth the conversation to the national level where policymakers are made to understand some of the inequalities that are existing within their either constituencies or just the general local communities. So, I mean, inequality is closely linked to poverty, and we continue to see the poverty gap increasing. As at 2015, we know that the poverty was about 54.4%, of course, mostly rural. So, as long as the poverty levels continue increasing, this then tends to increase the inequality gap as well.
Uh, so there's this brand that we like to hear, especially in Africa, of a middle income country. Does that I think it could be during Manawasa's time, we were declared the middle income country. Does that in any way imply that we are less unequal? Does that, okay, she's gone, she's gonna be back. So, like I was saying, I keep seeing messages. I think all the messages that I've seen here are coming from Lungushi universities, and the students are asking that we speak for them. So, to the Mulungushi University students, CBU students, Evelyn Horn students, what I can say is I'm not a spokesperson, but I can provide a platform for you to speak. So let's speak after the program. Let's speak tomorrow. Then we can create a platform where you can air your views. Deal.
In terms of responding to, oh, okay, we are
Okay,
off.
good. No, no, we are here. We are here. You're alive.
Okay, sorry. So, in terms of responding to the aspect around Zambia being a middle income country and what that means in terms of our inequality, I mean, when we're looking at the ratings that would cause a country to be a middle income country, which Zambia currently is, mostly what is considered here is the economic growth. So, the indicators are basically the gross national product.
Oh, that was so nice. Hey, Natalie. Natalie, we want you to come and finish that. We want to come and finish that. We want to hear that. We want to hear that.
Okay, sorry about that. I have a bad line. So I was indicating that in terms of getting to the position of a middle income country, the kind of rating that is done is mostly focused around economic growth. So what is taken into consideration is the gross national product and the GDP of a country. But then it's important for us to also note the Human Development Index. And this is where we're looking at issues around poverty and inequality. So unfortunately, while the economic growth of a country can be doing well, which is what Zambia probably was doing at the time when you measure the GDP, the human development at the other side would not be doing so well. So key would be to ensure that we are measuring both indexes, even as we declare a country, for example, to be doing so well. So in terms of economic growth, we can say, yes, the economy was doing well and was growing. But in terms of economic, the human impact, the Human Development Index, this has not really been advancing at the same rate.
Somebody would want
So
to
no,
argue.
being a middle income country does not necessarily mean we're less than equal.
Yeah. Somebody would argue and say the middle class community, the middle class population has grown in Zambia, which in any way should imply that we have more people with more people accessing resources, more people participating in the economy, more people getting empowered. If is it true? Do you think the middle income, middle class has grown, and to what extent has that affected the inequality index, or I don't know what you call it, the inequality reality in Zambia? To what extent has that been affected? If it's true that the middle class population has grown. Somebody would argue and say the middle class community, the middle class population has grown.
Sorry, I'm just listening to the question.
Which in any way implies that we have more people more people accessing resources, more people participating in the economy, more people getting empowered. If is it true? Do you think the middle income?
Okay, so that's why I had actually indicated. So while we do have a growing middle class, the aspect of the tax burden or the fiscal side of aspects, the fiscal side of things is what we're looking at. So for example, the real savings that we have at household level. So at this point, I think the basic food basket that was done by JCTR earlier this year indicated that the household income or the food basket has risen to about 7,000 kwacha. So if you're looking at income that is about, say, averaging 5,000 or 6,000 kwacha, which is the basic income for the middle class at present, already we are seeing that there is a there's a deficit in being able to even afford the basic food basket. So of course, this then borders on the taxation systems that we have, which at present are on the middle class. So I would say while we do have a growing middle class, yes, which is good, in terms of real household savings, this has not really been realized as much. And things are getting expensive. At present, we're talking about the kwacha trading at about 19.7 US dollars. So of course, what this means is goods and commodities are getting expensive, but in terms of incomes and the household savings, these either remain the same or are reducing. So that's what some of the challenges that we face.
Okay, so I'm going to get a question from Brian
Needless
Mukuka.
to
Brian,
say as well that the middle class are the ones that usually tend to cushion the inequalities that exist, especially between the rich and the poor. So these are mostly cushioned by the middle class. I mean, when you're talking about issues around fuel price increases, for example, these are the people that tend to bear most of the brunt of this.
oh yeah. So Brian Mukuka is asking Natalie, how does the trade benefit Zambia now, depending on the current situation? I don't know which question he's referring to, but he's asking how does trade benefit Zambia now, depending on the current situation? Okay, there is a question I've put in back.
Okay, so how does trade benefit Zambia now, depending on the current situation? I mean, if you're looking at the current situation in the light of COVID, of course, this has impacted on many countries, including Zambia. With many countries going on lockdown, for example, this has tended to impact. I mean, I'll give an example of the manufacturing industry that we have in Zambia here, which most input rather depends on imports. So when you have lockdowns that are currently existing in many of the countries that we depend on, this has tended to, of course, affect our trade in Zambia. But of course, with the growing trade organizations that we've had, I think we've benefited from certain agreements or certain which have facilitated trade amongst countries. We have benefited from these. They have been more beneficial to the developed nations as opposed to Zambia. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say we are doing bad, but at the current context, of course, with everything that has happened at the global level, this has impacted our industry as well. But I would just like to add, in terms of the cost of production, this has tended to be higher for countries like Zambia, of course, being a developed nation, and the fact that we do depend on a lot of other countries for our imports. This tends to affect the level to which we can trade and compete with other countries for similar commodities.
So what would be an indication that we have become a very equal society? What is it that you would look at, or that people should be looking out to see to know how equal we've become? We've lost Natalie again, but I'm sure she's gonna be back. So, Mulungushi University, CBU students, even on, I've gotten your requests and I've gotten them in abundance. I got them. What we do is, let me finish with Natalie, then we're gonna agree the time tomorrow. How does it benefit now, depending on the current situation?
Sorry, my line dropped.
Okay, there is a question I've put in back.
Okay, so how does trade benefit?
I'm trying to remember what I was asking. What I asked you. Okay, so I asked you, what is it that people should be looking out for to to see where Zambia is, whether we're making progress in relation to inequality levels, you said economic inequality. What is it that people should be looking out for to know how equal we've become? We've lost again.
Okay, so when looking at some of the indicators that would be looking at to ensure that Zambia is an equal country, I mean, we have to look at all the tenets that describe what inequality is. In a country like Zambia, like this one, where we have a large growing levels of inequality, we see certain tenets like growing corruption as well, public finance mismanagement, I would indicate. So the moment that we start seeing reduction in such like tenets, then we'll be saying we're becoming more equal as a country, I would say.
Okay, so there is Elijah Theo. Elijah Theo is telling of Nelson Lion Katongo. If your alternate suggestion is socialism, it has never worked in any country. So I think somebody is suggesting that we can only attain equality, economic equality in a country under socialism. I don't think you agree with that, do you? Okay, so I asked you, what is it that people should be looking out for?
So if your alternative suggestion is socialism, it has never worked in any country. Oh no, I'm at no point suggesting that Zambia becomes a socialist state. I mean, we want capitalism to work, and I think that's what we're practicing now. So, of course, when you talk about capitalism again, that becomes a whole different context, because now we're looking at ensuring that the private sector has an upper hand, or is let free to operate and be able to ensure that economic growth is generated. But then now, this still then becomes a problem, especially when we're looking at the.
Oh. Why is my network better? Why is my network better? Richard. So, okay. Yes, Natalie, you can continue.
Connection. I have such a bad connection today. So I was
It's,
indicating that I'm in no point suggesting a socialist state. I mean, we want capitalism to work. But of course, with capitalism, we're looking at a private sector and ensuring that they are the drivers of economic growth. But what we have now, of course, with an increasing debt situation, this has impacted also at domestic level. So we have domestic arrears, of course, which have tended to increase as well. And so, well, while efforts have been made at dismantling these, I think so much still has to be done, of course, with the debt issue. And so this then tends to cripple the extent to which the private sector is able to generate economic growth. But otherwise, I think that is the direction that we should be going, ensuring that the private sector is the one that is leading or promoting the growth that we want to see as a country, while the government is there to provide an enabling environment. So no, we are not suggesting socialism. No.
Joseph Ngoso says middle income is just a title. Even the developed countries have inequalities. Yes, they do. What's your reaction to that, Natalie?
Sorry, is there another question? I didn't get it.
Yes, there is. So it's a statement. Somebody's arguing. I found the person they're arguing. So Joseph is arguing with, is it Nelson? Joseph is saying middle income is just a title. Even developed countries have inequalities. I was asking if you have an opinion about that. I think I should start advertising for the network I'm using. So I should be asking people to use the network I'm using. So then we can. I'll start advertising my network. So all of you should.
Yes, I think you do need to start advertising. I mean, inequality is a global issue, so that's one thing we shouldn't run away from. But like I had indicated, or as we well know, it's the kind of the level of inequalities that you're at. So Zambia is one of the most unequal countries in the world. And then if you look at the poverty statistics as well, we have a larger number of, for example, in Zambia, 90% of our population is in the informal sector, for example. So already that kind of tells you the real incomes that people would have. So by virtue being
Wow. Can you mobile service providers? Mobile chama network nama talk them nama bando nama shwati narambo kula milombula. I have a very interesting scenario here. I have better network.
Yes, as I was indicating that inequality also borders on the poverty levels that are experienced by the country. So Zambia is one of the most unequal, but also we look at the poverty statistics which have been growing over time. I mean, this then tends to impact more on developing nations like ourselves as opposed to the developed nations. Because for looking at inequality, that's why I started by saying this impacts at different levels. So country like this, and we are already looking at how we are not getting a good deal out of the trade negotiations we're talking about at regional level. Surely we would not be comparing ourselves to developed nations which already have an upper hand in terms of such platforms.
So, okay, let me just take you off from the topic. I think I've gotten a lot of these messages. I would like you to obviously just to check if you've got an opinion about Mulungushi University. I think I've tried to. Okay. So, Mulungushi University, let's do this
tomorrow. Okay, just after the program, after I'm done talking to Natalie, we will discuss how we're going to do it tomorrow. But I would like us to make sure I talk about the policy of online education. That's very important.
Natalie, Natalie, yes. So I was saying,
Okay, so
so
I'm looking at something around the Mulungoshi University wants us to continue with each.
yes. So I was saying, the idea I
I'm
wanted
looking at
to
something around the
I wanted you
Mulungoshi
to have a
University
chat,
wants
to
us
have
to
a
continue
look
with
at
each.
that. But then let's do this first. Let's succeeding Dre, you got a very interesting point on poverty levels in Zambia in relation to inequality. Saying you have a very good point there. Inequality is allowing the first year to go to school physically, while the second and third years listen to voice notes for 2 hours. Wow. I don't know if the issue of okay, this is classic. So you guys are conducting my classes my voice notes. So what is happening? So what we're gonna do? Let me just get this done. What we're gonna do? If you are a student at Mulungushi University, okay, Natalie is here. Natalie, can you see that question? Do you have a comment on Mulungushi? Not so many questions for you. Students are just crying. Crying because of Mulungushi wanting them
Why
to
does
study.
Mulungoshi University seem to be dominating this platform?
Uh, they asking that we
Okay, so this also borders on around inequality. So if you are looking at developing nations like Zambia, who are in a debt situation like we are now, and I mean attending to borrow even to cushion the impacts of COVID-19, surely you would have more, you would need more in place to ensure that universities like the Molongoshi are able to
mm,
open, whilst the developed nations who have enough revenue to support COVID-19 cushioning are able to open. So this largely borders on the aspect of inequality. So I feel for
mm.
you, fellow students at Mulungushi. But of course, I
Yeah.
mean this it's all about health and safety.
So this is at this point I can make an appeal. So if you are Zamtel, if you are MTN, if you are Airtel, if you are Liquid, so we need somebody to go better. They are rooted. So then I can get to without I know my network, I know the network. Because hey Natalie, I started advertising. I started calling for people to donate data bundles to you. Hey Natalie, I started advertising. I started calling for people to donate data bundles to you. Okay, so Natalie, I would ask you because we've got received so many questions concerning the topic. A lot of them are talking about university, how they want us to speak for them. Where do you think is our weakness when it comes to the, where do you think is our where do you think is our weakness when it comes to the ordinary people of Zambia benefiting from the natural resources that we have in this country?
Okay, so in terms of the local people benefiting from the mineral resources in the country, I think as an organization we have been advocating for a revenue sharing model that allows for a certain allocation of mineral royalties to be channeled back to the local communities, especially those that are housing the mines. Because I mean, when you look at mining activity, there are several impacts that come out of mining, and these are mostly felt by the people that are housing. By this, I'll look at issues to do with infrastructure development. I mean, infrastructure
Mm.
for a long time. I think we have been advocating for a model that allows for royalty sharing. We have been advocating that a certain allocation of royalties that is collected at central government level is channeled back to communities, particularly those that are housed in the mines, largely because they're the ones that get to feel the negative impacts of mining activities. And of course, this goes beyond the center that is felt in the Copper Belt province. We're looking at issues around broken houses, infrastructure destruction. We're looking at issues of broken roads, social disruptions as well, because people are not able to live normal lives like agriculture, growing, keeping livestock, because even things like the soils that are near the mines are all destroyed. I mean, this is in addition to pollution, which the communities tend to deal with on a daily basis. So, in terms of ensuring that the local communities are getting benefits from the mining companies, this has been some of the things that we've been advocating for. Of course, at the national level, when we're talking about mineral royalties, but even at the local level, where we're saying even from some of the levies or taxes that have been collected by the local authorities, there should be some sort of local level sharing, where within the local authority budgets, this is done in such a way that the communities that are closest to the mines are somewhat cushioned for the negative impacts that they're facing. And we've actually seen part of this work in one of the councils in Solwezi, where they did adopt a bylaw.
Okay, so actually,
After she's done.
Local level, sharing.
Sorry, Natalie, I think I lost
So
you.
my
Can you
network
can
is
you
not
just
always like this. I don't know why.
can you, because I think I lost you. Can you just go through what you just said?
Okay, so I was highlighting that we have been.
I think I lost you. Can you just go through what you just said?
Okay, so I was saying, in terms of advocating for local communities to benefit from mining activity, um, what we have done is we have created some sort of model that allows for revenue sharing, and this revenue is with reference to mineral royalties. So our argument has been that a certain percentage of mineral royalties should be channeled back to those local communities that are housed in mines as a way of cushioning from all the negative impacts that they have to face on a daily basis. And I was giving examples of things.
so Natalie is gonna come back. The trouble with internet is so real. But so Minoguchi student, be on
I am gonna connect with you, Stu, so then we can hear your story.
Yes, so I was giving examples of land cavings, issues of broken houses. You have road infrastructure defeated. You have pollution. I mean, now Kabwe is still referred to as one of the most polluted towns in the world because of mining activity. So it's kind of seeing or ensuring a situation where even when mining is no longer taking place, the communities that have been largely impacted kind of benefit from the mining that has been taking place, especially that they, get to deal with the negative impacts. So I did give an example of a local level share in which we've also been advocating for, where some of the levies and taxes that are collected by the local councils are shared with the local communities, but in such a manner that the ones that are closest to the mines get a larger share. So we have seen somewhat this working in Solwezi Council, where we have a bylaw that allows for local level mineral sharing.
Okay, that's very good. Oliver Kashekede says, I don't think we have proper policies as to help our local industry in this country as trade is concerned. Look, we concentrate much on the import than export. Explain, Madam Natalie, how export policies can improve to promote local industry.
Okay, so in looking at this, of course, we would not really say we don't have proper policies in the country, but like I had indicated in my earlier statements, where I was saying some of the gaps that we have existing are basically policy inconsistencies. So while you do have a policy that allows for or that should facilitate for trade within or amongst countries, you also have an industrial policy which does not exactly support local level industry growth. So it's kind of, well, that supports rather local industry growth. But if you look at the two policies, they don't really speak to each other. Another thing that I would give, which is closest to home, for example, is the ministries. So on one end, you have the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, by virtue of just giving an example, which is facilitating or ensuring that we have trade systems that are working and that trade should take place. At the same time, you have the Ministry of Finance that is largely trying to ensure that they get as much revenue from industry. So already at the um, trade points, for example. So if you have the Ministry of Commerce that is trying to have a situation where the barriers to trade are removed, but then you have the Ministry of Finance that is still trying to ensure that they get revenue out of the trade that we have. Already you see that these are two ministries that are kind of working in silos, if I would put it like this. So it's more of kind of making sure that the policies that we have in place are speaking to each other or are consistent with one another. Then I think this would largely benefit from the policies that we have.
I am beginning to think that we are discussing
I mean,
fruits.
of course, if I have to give an example of the African Continental Free Trade Area which Zambia is trying to get into, or even just the bilateral trade agreements that we have, there are certain times where you would probably want to remove certain barriers such as quotas and tariffs. But I mean, this is a source of revenue as well for our treasury. So then you have a Ministry of Commerce on one end, which is trying to facilitate trade, but then you have the Ministry of Finance that needs a much larger revenue that we have in the country. So then it becomes a larger conversation.
Mm. So I wanted to ask. So how do we balance a situation where the situation that you just clearly yeah, where the Minister of Commerce would want to record business at the expense of revenue for the Ministry of Finance. How do we balance? How do we balance that? How do we make sure that the Minister of Commerce is making progress in making sure that there's food at home, and then the Ministry of Finance is also getting its money? Um, so, Wamlungushi, I'm going to post the link for this discussion as soon as I'm done with Natalie, and then I'll let you join in. So be patient.
Okay, so in terms of seeing how we strike a balance, I mean, of course, this is something that would have to be done at that level, at government level. But of
Mm,
course, I have seen, for example, even in the seventh national development plan, the most ministries or government in general, the mainstream government, is moving towards local content ideas. So it's basically, I think, for all ministries to have a unified policy or system in place that
mm.
sees how, for example, the locals or local people would be best helped to benefit or trade or do anything. So I think it's unifying such policies, especially those that are espoused in the development plans, like the seventh. That would be one step, and I have already seen that it's already itemized within the plan. So it's probably something that might get better. we do hope that it gets better.
That would be one step, and I have already seen. So Natalie, on Friday, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Finance on Friday is presenting budget for 2021. Yes, 2021. What is it that you would love to see?
Natalie. Yes, so the Minister of Finance will be presenting his budget on Friday. What is it that you, from your perspective, as an organization, what do you think? What do you want to hear from the minister that you think would be speaking directly to inequality and improving our situation?
I mean, obviously, we are looking at it how issues to deal with how we are going to promote local economic growth. By this, I'm looking at how the private
Network is bad somewhere. The network is bad somewhere. Airtel, where are you? Show yourself. Give us data, give us the router. MTN, where are you? Irange, never yellow. Irange, never red. Irange, never green. Green potential. Zambia, Irange. I'm asking for a router and data so I can be giving my guests to you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so I was saying, of course, I mean, the element around dismantling domestic debt has been going on for a long time. So it's basically just seeing what plans are in place to ensure that this happens. The debt issue remains with us. So seeing, I mean, we would expect to hear what strategies are in place, short, medium, or long term, in terms of what the plans look like in terms of how we're going to finance these debts that we have, but also just seeing how we strike a balance, I think, between our monetary and fiscal policies. I mean, this has been a problem. And of course, we are looking at how the kwacha has depreciated over time against major foreign currency. So it's basically just getting an understanding of what plans are in place to ensure that amidst all these economic problems that we have, depreciated currency, we have so all the economic hardships that have been taking place amidst a private sector that is also struggling to grow. I mean, we'd expect him to mention some aspects or strategies that are specific to such elements.
Any hope for windfall taxes when it comes to mining, the mining industry?
Some aspects or strategies that are specific to such elements.
Any hope for windfall taxes when it comes to mining, the mining industry?
Some aspects or strategies that are specific. I mean, the current mining, the sliding scale that we have is some sort of a windfall tax. But of course, with this, I mean, it's kind of ensuring that
And then I'll share the link to this discussion in the comments. All of you that are making noise, at least 4 people at the time, we come in, we take the connect to other people. We can allow you to speak and reach out to the authorities.
Yes, Natalie, you're back.
You're back. I'm sure by the end of
yes, I'm back. So I was indicating that the current sliding scale that we have is some sort of windfall tax, but of course we have made specific recommendations that look at how we should be benefiting at a point where we have, for example, an increase in price of mineral at international level. Of course, proposing a break-even point at which, at a certain point or at a certain production point, well, more or less like a sliding scale, but also ensuring that we have a win-win situation for the mining companies as well. So we have made some sort of recommendations of what we see working, where after a certain break-even point of production, we should be able to tax even more. So as a country, we are benefiting, but also taking consideration of the cost of production of mining companies.
So would you, if the Minister of Finance was to work in your office today and ask who should be taxed more, would you suggest that he taxes more the multinational investors, the mining companies, or the mine who is paid 5,000? Would you suggest that he taxes more the multinational investors, the mining companies, or the mine who is paid 5,000?
Well, I mean, we could be getting there's many revenues for revenue collection. So beyond the multinational companies, which I think there's a lot of revenue that we are losing out from, I so I was indicating that while we could be benefiting from a lot of revenue as well from the mining companies, which many times we tend not to, and we shift the burden, of course, to the local citizens, we do have an increasing or a large informal sector as well, which is not taxed. So for me, it's finding different avenues or various avenues in which we can ensure that we get more revenue. At the end of the day, we do need foreign direct investment in the country, but of course, we still need to get the revenue that is due to the country. So as opposed to increasing taxes for the same population, suffice to say that we should be getting our fair share from the local industries, but it's also looking at the different avenues that we could be optimizing in terms of revenue collection.
Thank you very much, Natalie. We've had a very beautiful program, though we've been disturbed by the bad network. But obviously, we've had a great discussion, and I do hope that those that have been watching and following us have learned a thing or two. Anything you'd like to say in your conclusion? Anything you'd like to say in your conclusion?
Well, thank you very much for the platform. Of course, I mean, it's just to continue to thank you, I mean, for this platform that you're providing, where you're able to share insights around inequality. I mean, this is a battle that would not be won today or tomorrow, but I mean, we continue with the conversation, and we are hopeful that at some point we'll have a Zambia that is equal, where there will be no coup. We continue with the conversation, and we are hopeful that at some point we'll have a Zambia that is equal, where there will be no coup.
Okay, thank you very much, Natalie, and have a good evening. Okay, thank you very much, Natalie, and have a good evening.
All right, good evening. Bye-bye.
So, thank you very much. That was Natalie, and we were discussing inequality. But then we got so many requests from Mulungushi universities. So for those students that were screaming at me, in your comment section, I've sent you the link. I'm gonna give you 20 minutes. So from this is 22:05 at 22:25 we are done. So use that link, connect through, and let's hear you. I have shared the link. I don't want to talk about things that you can talk about yourself. You understand better. So if you are watching and you are from Mlungushi, I've just shared the link. I want to hear from you. Come in, tell us. You will give us. We want to understand what is happening at Mulungushi. What is happening there? What is happening at Mulungushi University? What is happening at Mulungushi University? I have shared the link and I've given you 20 minutes. So we've lost a minute. We have about 19 minutes. But Mulungushi University, I'm waiting for you. There is a link. We want to hear from you. Machala, hey, Trande, Landen, link you. Link you. The platform is ready. The platform is set. Twewen, what is happening at Mulungushi? What is Mulungushi University doing? Mapalo. Vamapalo. Vamapalo, you are on mute, Vamapalo. Vamapalo, not grab up mute na imwe.
Yes. Hapo.
Big man, nomba treni mwana no kumemona nishani nkutamba ni Facebook, ni YouTube, kutamba.
Kamera no bwino. Kamera no bwino.
Nishire chika nomba ku Mulungushi University ko big man.
Ku Mulungushi manje bayibikira ati ifwe ma second year ba third na fourth. Achitakuli ukuyako manje.
Nishpan.
Oro bakateka badisora masu ati badera ndabe na COVID manje na atifundisha mu school.
So badera ba president badera vesure badera bali rufanya.
So bena babayibikira ba president bali rufanya. Tekutumbo.
Eko kwini naba mona think naba terera fe. Naba terera.
Baunza na besura bonse. Oro ifoto hafe 6 pin. Bena katoshinga ni 17 pin. Bena na besura. Ya shani.
So nomba. Ngabade myumfa ba Minister of Education. Ngabade myumfa ba kuba management ba ku Mulungushi. Bade myumfa ba kateka. Finish mwingabe ba mapalo. Papange ntu.
Ifokto atema batusiro kama skuru kwazi. Kunganda online ngitaire twafa kweneni wera semester na kotama shishi benefona yakweti muna nditware kopesha nyafu so ina tema fe ba so otherwise online taire twafa point anyway taire twafa oro bade for trade period 7 pin trembo fe ma voice note ya 45 minutes to WhatsApp engineering drawing 45 minutes aderanda fiore draw aderanda
itakuwa nifuake.
So bare tuli dempite triple 14 pin tria mukusambira kufe 1 month muskuru tebona oshubo 14 pin.
So namkwatako abotu ingatumina abakuti namkwatako namba yaba kutumina tukabatumina. Yaba kumulungu.
Nishi yabadini fe twarafa.
Pangen mu inbox kabatumine kai. Charo chabonse. Charo chabaranda chaba sambina beka charo chabonse. Devin.
Charo chabonse. Kuitu mashani.
Munchte inbox.
Inbox ka. Lekeni fe sende pa page abo pa pene fe.
Okay, Mapalo, bye.
Kai, bye.
Avena Jack, no net, chura, guys. Ama network inombo. Ine network yandia kalipashani. So bamrungushi. Akui seni mulande mwebene. Basi biyu na mwa likwete ko situation, seni mulande na mwa abantu bani bamyumfu. So education is very important. I keep saying education is very important for child. There's no way to end up building a child foundation pabufonti now. Obufontini tetibutwafu okupanga ekyalo. Obututu, you can't build a chalo no bututu. Even these beautiful roads that we are building, even these shopping malls, even these mines, you discover God. Without an education, ni shimulesha abantu into slavery. Other people that have educated their people will come into our country and they will take over our country because we won't have the minds, the necessary education that would equip us to run these things, to even we'll become street kids if we don't have the education. So education is very important. Abana pamulungushi baliyelila big man. Chizo iwe ashakamera washe na microphone tukumfu. Chizo microphone ilipa mute. Chizo microphone ilipa mute. Chizo microphone ilipa mute. Hello? Chizo. So I've shared the link again. So we have about 25, actually over 25 minutes. Okay. So I want to hear from you. I want you to make use of this platform and communicate. So I was talking about why we need to invest in the education of our young people. So education as it is, there's no way we can develop a country without developing the minds of our young people. There's no way Zambia can escape even its poverty, even the situation that it's confronted with now, without the education of its people, without the education of its young people. The best gift that any government can give to its country is to educate its young people. If we fail to educate our young people, if we fail to invest in our young people, if we fail to develop the minds of our young people, we are literally killing the future of this country. We are killing the future of this country. With education, there shouldn't be politics. No politics with education, because that's a pillar of our future. Like I was saying, if you go to the mines now, you realize that even the machinery that is being used in the mines is different from what was used or what was being used a few years ago. So everything is getting advanced, everything is getting improved. If you go to the banks, you realize that the banks have fewer staff members now. The ATM is literally doing everything. The only thing that a person cannot do at the ATM is kuzembeleka chi ATM. What that means is that because of technological advancement, opportunities are becoming fewer. So if we do not educate our people, we are to level lower. It's like we are casing our own future. You, Simon?
Yes, how are you?
Very fine. At Mulungushi University?
Yes, I'm actually a student there as well.
Yeah, what's the problem? Tell us, what is happening at Mulungushi University?
To start with, a memo was sent to say students would open just for a month. That's in November. Yeah. And from now till then, they would have to continue with e-learning.
What's the problem with e-learning?
The problem is most courses that are practical from second year to third year, that interaction that we usually have with lecturers won't be there. And the fact that after learning for a month, we're subjected to physical exams. So that's what the problem is. People are like, how can you be learning online and then be subjected to a physical exam? So that's why they're saying it's unfair. And the fact that we're paying 14,000 for this semester just for us to be in school for that same 1 month. And yeah, that's what the problem is.
So number, leave engage from the paper from sharp. So
yeah, that's a
so
problem. That's hence people are upset about it.
Why are they disobeying the president?
No feedback has been given on that actually, but they just said we'll be going in phases there, and that's where the problem is coming in for most students, because just learning from home is a problem. We have load shedding now, we have issues of bundles becoming expensive, and so as a result, it's not easy for someone to actually learn certain things that require face-to-face learning online. That's why most people are finding it a challenge.
If you can do that, I'm appealing at this point. What would your appeal be? What would you say to the Minister of Education who is watching or probably watch it tomorrow? What would you say to the president who is watching? President is my number one fan. So if
Okay,
the president, what would you say to them now?
Okay, I'm appealing to the higher education minister and to the president that they may reconsider the decision that is being made by the school for us to continue with online learning, but rather put in place a possibility for us to have physical learning if we're going to be paying so much money, because 14,000 just for us to continue with online learning, and with these hard situations we're going through economically, I think our parents wouldn't manage.
So you're saying that if chosen 14,000 kwacha, it would be okay for you to learn online? If they told you that, okay, start paying 2,000 kwacha and online, would you say it's fine now?
No, it wouldn't, because the cost is still very much for us to learn online.
Okay, good. Okay. So thank you very much, Simon. Let me also accommodate other people, yeah?
All right, you're welcome.
Hello, D, Achan. Your microphone is on mute. Unmute your microphone. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but I want to see you also. This is not a radio station. It's a TV. Oh, it's a Facebook. It's YouTube. So we need to see you.
Sorry.
Hello? Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's happening at Mulungush? What's the problem? Why don't you want to learn via internet?
It's hard. It's very hard. Learning on the internet is very hard. You can't expect someone. We're basically teaching ourselves, and we're paying a large amount of money just to teach ourselves. So these people or English management wants us to continue. We've been at home for like 6 months. Last semester we had online exams, and then we didn't do well. A lot of people carried their courses, others had lost courses and had lost their results, and they didn't do anything about it. And then other people, the scenario where other people they're not starting to know. So it's different when you have physical, people learning than when you have online learning, where there's so many problems, especially in our country where we're experiencing other people are in areas where they can't afford internet. Like you saw the lady that was there with you, she was having a hard time with the internet. So just imagine what exactly can you learn, what exactly can you get from that. It's really hard, and we're very inconvenienced, and it's even worse because they're putting first years over us. We understand they're first years, but we've been here for 6 months, and we've been struggling for a long time. A lot of people are actually passing. They're starting to pass, not to know. So it's our future at stake.
Okay, so they are watching. Obviously, by now they have been told that you are talking, you are speaking to them. what would you like them to think about as they are making the next decision?
To please reconsider the fact that, okay, online learning is not for us. We are going through so much. We're at home, like I'm a girl. I have to cook, I have to clean at the same time, I have to run, I have to do assignments, I have to find time to study. It's hard. So they have to consider us. They have to look at our views. They have to listen to us and find a way to make this work. Find a way to make sure we all have the time we need.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Let me invite another person to share their thoughts as well. Thank you. Vaman.
Bayama.
Hey, number guy.
Unfortunately, I'm in the dark, so even if I turn on my mic, it makes no difference.
Serious?
Very much.
So modifica sana festa na
Huh?
modifica sana tu tumone gani na mosquito The reason why I can is because I need to know who I'm. Tasha. Iwa Tasha, you are on mute. Tasha, you are on mute. Okay, so everybody is gone. Baman.
Boss.
Okay, and then first go ahead. I was going to be happy if I could have an idea of the place I'm talking about.
Unfortunately, that's not so. Anyway, let me just speak quickly.
The
The issue here, from what I've seen, it seems Mulungushi management over-enrolled people because nobody expected schools to be open this quickly. So now the problem they're having is schools are open and the capacity they have for student accommodation is far too little. So the students they have active are far too many. So the option, the solution they've come up with is to have people come to school in stages. So the first stage are the first years. They come, believe they'll only be there for a month or two, I'm not sure. And then they leave. And then the second, third, and fourth years then follow afterwards. Now the problem is the second, third, and fourth years are going to write exams, physical exams, but they are learning online. Rather, we are learning online, sorry. Which is, boss, the thing of learning online is not working. It's not working. So last semester we had online examinations. They were, I don't know what I can call it, but it didn't feel like an exam. It didn't feel, because you are seeing them for the first time in the exam room.
Yeah.
So, and you just copy and paste. So it entails that the issue of e-learning, we are learning nothing.
So let me ask you a question. Do you have blind students at
I'm not sure on that, but the website said 6,000 active students, and that was before they enrolled the current first years.
No, I mean students that are blind, students that cannot see.
Students that are not?
That cannot see, the blind people. Do you have blind people that are students in Mulungushi?
I can't get you clearly, you're bumping. Oh, the disabilities.
Yes, but especially the blind.
I personally haven't seen any. There might be, but I haven't seen any myself.
Okay, so man, imagining that the president is listening to this, imagining that the minister is listening to this, imagining that Mulungushi management is, what's your appeal?
My appeal. Uniformity. If you want to go e-learning all the way, you go e-learning all the way. You don't just do e-learning and then have people write physical exams after that. If you are going to have people write physical exams, let them learn physically also. So uniformity, if you decide everybody's doing e-learning, everybody's doing e-learning. You decide everybody's doing physical, then everybody physical.
Thank you, Mama.
All right, thank you.
Try which pondo? Hello, you. Try well. I've been digging to show you, but you don't. You. Achan.
Yes, bagamba muve bwino.
Laka. Hey, you want to know about Mulungush? What's your cry? What's your concern? What's your problem?
Bosses, mwalira.
Laka sana, ifu tuladila Johnson big man. Hey, Achan, kailande ntu for Mulungush. Nish, what's your problem?
Achumfwa.
Nama mudapa Mulungush University.
Mulengufa boss, mulengufa.
Ndemi umfa, mudapa Mulungush University naimu. Tasha, chimika tumfu nishi achitika kumulungushi University. So, Tasha. Okay, Tasha. Pen. Iwe pen. Hello? I have all of you guys, but if you're not talking, na love shimyo. Ndegeni nda mkola la mosquito badi eko something. Badi na nsala tabansu mine popo uchede. Tiba phone nsala mosquito. Yeah. Yes, guys. Hello? It's a chance. It's you. It's you. So, Bamulungushi guys, so I've personally gotten the message, and what I'll do is I'll get in touch with the authorities tomorrow. Hopefully they'll be available. I'll try to speak to the people that I can speak to tomorrow, and then I'll see how I can add my voice to your voices. As students, this is a very special and serious appeal to you as young people in school. The seriousness of your situation, the seriousness of education must be seen to manifest in you first of all. We, as young people, we must understand that there is no single individual that can speak for us if we refuse to speak for ourselves. It is not enough to ask people to cry for ourselves, for us. We must cry ourselves. We must push ourselves. We must demand ourselves. It is very necessary. The reason I'm saying this is because as it is now, the country is so dissolved in a lot of stories, chan, such that what could be a priority for you may not be a priority for the rest of the people in the country. Therefore, it is your responsibility as students, it is your responsibility as young people to prioritize your struggle. You must make it so clear that education is your priority. Education is your business. anyone who tries to take away your education, if anyone that tries to snatch you away from education, they are snatching a future from you. They are taking advantage of you. They are cursing your future. So that's why it has to be your battle. It has to be your struggle. The best all of us can do, the best that Pilato can do, the best that any other person can do in Zambia is to add their voice to your voices. So your voices must be loud enough to attract our voices. So I'm going to add my voice to your issues. Let me just get facts and let me speak to people. Let me just try to understand what the problem is. And then I'll join you in demanding that the school it should be opened. The president did announce that schools should be opened. I don't know why Mulungushi University should disagree and disrespect the president's opinion. I don't know why Mulungushi University should feel more knowledgeable than the president in this case. So, yeah, so let's do this tomorrow. I'm going to join you tomorrow. Imo guys, imo na rashta adiapa. T. Hello. Wati, wakofi. Mazoi. Okay, so guys, I'm off. Let me try Chichi. Chichi, you're on mute. Okay. So guys, good night. I'm gonna join my voice to your voices, but remember, this is your struggle. So you must lead the way. You must lead the way. Okay. This is your struggle. This is your struggle. This is your future. This is the future of our country. You are the future of our country. If we are your people. You are the ones that will be keeping us, ruling us, governing us. So that's why it is your opportunity to design what you want to become in your own future. So yeah, so education is important. Let's defend it. Thank you very much for watching today's Hill Conversations. I wanted to announce also that on Friday, the Minister of Finance will be announcing or presenting the budget to Parliament. Starting on Monday, I will start hosting people and the general public focusing, will be presenting their mock budgets. And these budgets should be addressing the levels of inequality. How can they create more decent jobs? How are they going to tax? Where are they going to get the taxes? Who are they going to tax more? Where are they going to channel the taxes? So that's what we'll be discussing much of next week. Thank you very much for tuning in and bye. Bamulongoshi, see you pamant. Like any guys a bit soon.